Good morning, and welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church, in-person and online worship. Whether today is your first time here or you've been coming for years, we're so glad you are with us. My name is Connie Cross. My pronouns are she and hers, and I'm a member of a spiritual enrichment group and the Dawn Redwood meditation group. We are growing a community that transforms lives through the power of love. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. Welcome also to those at home who are joining us on Zoom. If you're attending for the first time, please go to our website and fill out the welcome card so we can know more about you. And we have a lot of announcements this morning. Share the Plate nominations. It is our tradition to share 1/3 of each Sunday's offering to a nonprofit organization chosen by members of the congregation. Now is when the Social Justice Committee starts planning for next year's Share the Plate. Do you have a nonprofit organization that you would like to nominate for the 2023-2024 church year? If so, there is a link to submit your nomination in the e-blast. Paper forms are also available on the Social Justice Bulletin Board in the foyer. Nominations will be collected through Friday, March 31st. The Social Justice Committee will vote on the nominations in April. For more information, see Julie Harrison or Jim Mason. And the A2U2 Earth Day Community Yard Sale is coming up Saturday, April 22nd. See Polly Juno or Emily O'Neill for more information and sign up in the foyer today after the service. And now David Wilcock has an announcement.
Good morning, folks. This is, I was overwhelmed by the return greeting. That's better. Little information about the pledge drive. We are in, after 2 weeks of the pledge drive, we have pledges of $83,000 given by 33 pledge units, as we call them. $83,000 is 39% towards our goal of $215,000 for this year's pledge drive. 33 pledges is only about 30% of our estimated number of pledge units in the church. So get those pledges in. If you don't intend to go to a cottage meeting, or if you have trouble doing things online, I've got some copies of the pledge form, which I'd be happy to give you, and you can fill it out, give it to me, and we will get it to the right place. Our experience on the 19th of doing a cottage meeting at Ocean View was great. We had 13 people attend, most of them veteran UUs, and as you would expect with 13 veteran UUs, there was an interesting conversation about the future of the church, priority activities, things that were left out of various statements of our future goals. So, very, very good, very relaxed. I strongly encourage those of you who haven't signed up to do so. In the order of service, there is a list of other meetings, including 2 today. So it's not too late. Yes?
I'm having a meeting today, and in the order of service it says it's at 2:30, but it's at 2:00. So if anyone wants to come to my meeting, I have to ask them at 2:00, not 2:30.
And this is in Cape Elizabeth.
Could you repeat that, please, into the mic?
There is a, Kathy Rasco is hosting a cottage meeting at her house that starts at 2:00, not 2:30 as it says in the order of service. And we have some other ones there. We will probably do a final A2U2 one, which is not listed, on the 26th, next Sunday. So, thank you. And do come to these meetings. They're lots of fun, and the church is counting on you.
And now Annie Blanchard has an announcement.
Hello, everybody. So our 5-session SEG is scheduled. We're going to be meeting the second and fourth Mondays in the evening here and/or on Zoom, if you prefer that, starting April 10th. It's going to be from 6:30 to 8, and you'll notice in the order of service, Pat, Ellen, and my contact information is there. If you're interested, we'd love to hear from you before the first week of April if you want to join us. Thanks.
Anybody else? Now we invite you all to take this opportunity to silence your cell phones so that we can be fully present to one another. After the service, please grab a cup of coffee in the kitchen window and stay for conversation. We encourage you to find someone you've never met before and introduce yourself. Those on Zoom may stay on and connect with one another. And now let us center our hearts and minds with the ringing of the chimes.
Good morning. I'm Nadine Chase-Ortiz. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I've been a member of A2U2 since 2021. Oh, thank you. I've always volunteered and supported several organizations just to make the world a better place. And in 2020, I started getting tired of working kind of by myself, but with various organizations. And I was looking for a group of people to do that work with. And I reached out to a good friend of mine. We both survived nursing school together. She's a Quaker, and I always loved her take on, things that were going on in the world, being a pacifist and everything. It was very different from how I grew up. And so I asked her about Quakerism, and she was like, well, the Quakers are kind of quiet. You might want to meet with the UUs. She knows me well. So I did a little Googling, discovered this church, the other one in Portland, and Musan, actually, and ended up going to the main Unitarian Universalist State Advocacy Network, their big annual meeting, did a couple Zooms here, services, while you were all, during the pandemic, and ended up joining in February. And it just, it just clicked for me. And I think that was kind of my long, winding way of getting here. But the short answer is the people and the values. As Reverend Tara put it in the February 19th service, our faith supports bodily autonomy and the dignity of the rights of human beings. And as Unitarian Universalists, the core values of our faith call us to create a world of justice. And I believe in that fervently, and it's just great to have this baseline support that gives me the energy to do the work I want to do. And obviously, that faith and that support needs money. So pledging and doing what you can collectively to help make the world a better place would be great. So please consider pledging. Thank you.
So in a moment, we're going to sing together at A2U2, which is the song that Dale wrote using the words of our mission statement. So Dale will play it through once, and then we'll all sing together, and you can find the words on the screen. Amen. That one's not going to get old. Beautiful. So good morning, church. Good morning. It's so good to see you, all of you. If we haven't met yet, my name is Reverend Tara, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. And I am the transitional minister here at Allen Ave UU Church. This morning, we're going to reflect together on some of the ways our Unitarian Universalist tradition has changed over the years. And we'll get curious about the changes that are underway now. Change is hard, right? Change is hard, but change can be good. So let us open our hearts and our minds as we settle into this time of exploration, a time and a place made sacred by our gathering. I am glad you are here. Come and be welcome. You are joyfully called to worship. We light our chalice this morning with our hearts turned to the work of our faith. We have inherited this tradition from generations of people who believed in the power of human beings to bear love into the world. We carry this tradition for those who find comfort, inspiration, and joy within its real and virtual spaces. We tend to the spark of imagination and hope for the world to come. Our opening hymn this morning is As Tranquil Streams, number 145 in your gray hymnal or on the screen. Dale will play through once, and then we'll rise in body or in spirit and sing together. later in our service this morning, we're going to be talking about change. Anybody know what we might be talking about right now from what you see in the basket? We're going to talk about how important things change over time, but how the most important things stay the same, even when everything around them is changing. We're going to talk about how Unitarian Universalism is changing, but how the most important parts of our faith will stay the same. Now, when I think about change, I think about technology. Anybody with me? That's probably true for all of us. And so, this week, I decided to go on an archaeological dig in my house, and I asked Emily to go on an archaeological dig, and I asked John Howard to go on an archaeological dig, and we found some fossils that I want to show you. Does anybody know what this is? Go ahead. We're not sure. Anybody else? VHS. All right. What about this? A tape. A cassette tape. All right. What about these? Those are something. What'd you say? Floppy disks, which I have heard called 3D memory. Anyone? Okay, what about this? We're not sure. Anybody know what this is? A what? Yes, well, kind of, yes, a zip drive. How about this? Yes, or listen to music. Okay, one more, friends. How about this fossil? It's not a camera, it's an iPod, right? So, these things, this stack of, oh, here's one more I forgot about. What about this? It's a check. Fossil. I'm just joking. So, what all these things have in common is that they're different pieces of technology that we use to do things we need to do. So, what we used to use a floppy disk for, we then replaced with the zip drive, which is so small, I can't even find it. And then we replaced the zip drive with what our tech team knows as the cloud. And so we have storage. It's still storage, right? But it looks totally different from the floppy disk. Same goes with movies. We used to use these. They took up all sorts of space in your homes. And then we started using these. And now, how do you watch movies now? Live stream. Does anyone here watch Netflix or different kinds of things that don't require any CDs? You did? That's amazing. What about these, right? So we used to use these. Some of us still do. I clearly still do because I'm holding them. What replaced checks? Cards, and then PayPal and Venmo. Some of you don't know what those are because we're all on a different technology journey. But what stays the same is that we still have to use money, right? It takes a different form. It looks different than it used to. but it's still money. All of that to say, we catch on at different speeds. Some of you clearly still have VHS at your home, or else I wouldn't have gotten one in this basket today, Emily. Some of you still have floppy disks in your homes, John. I still have an iPod, even though my phone does the same function these days on Spotify. And so what that reminds me of is how we all are on a different journey with how we adapt and change to the world around us. Some of us are fast adapters, some of us are slower, and it doesn't mean anything about who we are, it just means we're on a different journey. And so as we reflect today on our Unitarian Universalist tradition, some of what we'll talk about are fossils. Some of what we talk about are new technology, and I hope that together we'll be able to reflect and see where we find ourselves on that journey of acceptance and change. Thank you.
In a few moments, some of us will leave the sanctuary to enjoy religious education programming, and it's so much fun today. It's about miracles, and we're also going to break bread together, and we're going to create our own miracle, but I can't tell you what it is because it wouldn't be very miraculous to just start, talking about our surprise in front of the kids. And normally, this is a time I would invite our lamplighter to join me in the pulpit, but we had so many kids today I was talking to, I forgot to ask one who wanted to be the lamplighter. So do I have anyone who would like to join me to light the lamp? Okay, I will. Josie is brand new. Welcome, Josie. You can come up, and Dexter, do you want to help Josie to teach her how to do it? So this is Dexter. Follow Dexter, and he's going to teach you how to light the lamp. A lamplighter is entrusted to transfer the light of the sanctuary chalice to the lamp and then go forth to RE spaces where they will light the chalices there. Josie and Dexter will now light the lamp. I invite those going to RE to follow the lamplighter as we carry the flame, expanding our sacred space.
We are a freely gathered, open, and welcoming faith community supported by your contributions. Each week, 1/3 of our offering is given away to a nonprofit organization whose mission aligns with our Unitarian Universalist principles. This month's Share the Plate recipient is the Maine Association for New Mainers, an immigrant-led organization that promotes the social and personal empowerment of immigrants living in Maine. You can find more information in your order of service. Donations can be made now as the basket is passed through the donate button on our website, or if you are a member, on Breeze. If giving through Breeze, please note if the donation is your pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate. If you are visiting us for the first time this morning, please know that your presence is your gift to us. At this time, our offering will be collected and gratefully received.
Awesome.
So we have a group who is going to do our reading this morning, and I invite those of you who I snagged right before the surface and thrust a piece of paper into your hand to come on up to the Joys and Sorrows mic. So this reading, and I'll introduce it a little bit with some words. So this reading is the proposed new draft to the Unitarian Universalist Association's Article 2, which we're going to talk about. Article 2 is the section of our association's bylaws which house the 7 principles and the 6 sources. And these bylaws, these words, this draft is, it's okay if you're out of order, I'll call on you, is the new language. So as you hear this new language, just allow it to sink in, notice how you feel, notice what you think, and then we'll talk about it later. So I'll begin. The UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, will devote its resources to and use its organizational powers for religious, educational, and humanitarian purposes. Its primary purposes are to assist congregations in their vital ministries, support and train leaders, both lay and professional, to foster lifelong faith formation, to heal historic injustices, and to advance our Unitarian Universalist values in the world. The purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. As UUs, we covenant, congregation to congregation and through our association, to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage. Building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together, and it is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are interdependence,
Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships.
pluralism,
Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect.
justice,
Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systematic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions.
transformation,
We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages. Never complete and never perfect.
generosity,
Thank you. I'm glad I got this one, and I'll read it in a second, but I have to say something. Generosity resonates with me on a number of different levels. But this morning, it really resonated with me as I was reading it because it reminds me of our pledging that David so generously mentioned this morning. And it reminds me that next time I see David, I'm going to really say hi. Hi, David. Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, our presence, and our resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality.
equity,
We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
The following sections address inspirations previously known as or currently known as the 6 sources, as well as inclusion and freedom of belief. Inspirations.
As Unitarian Universalists, we use and are inspired by sacred and secular understandings that help us to live into our values. We respect the histories, context, and cultures in which they were created and are currently practiced. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. Grateful for the religious ancestries we inherit and the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom.
Inclusion.
This is okay.
Systems of power, privilege, and oppression have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups with particular identities, ages, abilities, and histories. We pledge to replace such barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity and mutual respect. We strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcome all persons who share our values. We commit to being an association of congregations that empowers and enhances everyone's participation, especially those with historically marginalized identities.
And finally, freedom of belief.
Congregational freedom and the individual's right of conscience are central to our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Congregations may establish statements of purpose, covenants, and bonds of union, so long as they do not require that members adhere to a particular creed.
Therein ends this long reading. choir. Thank you, Dale. Universalists are often asked to tell where they stand, writes Louis Fisher in his 1921 work, Which Way? He continues, the only true answer to give to this question is that we do not stand at all. We move. Or we are asked to state our position. Again, we can only answer that we are on the march. We do not stand still, nor do we defend any immovable positions, theologically speaking. We grow and we march, as all living things forever must do. The main questions with Universalists are not where we stand, but which way we are moving. Not what positions we defend, but which way we are marching. Unitarian Universalism is on the move. And I want to give you some context for the discussion about this movement, for the discussion about changing our UU principles, about the discernment process we're in as a movement, about which way we will march next. When the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America merged in 1961 to become the Unitarian Universalist Association, they adopted a non-creedal theological framework and a democratic process for conducting the business of the denomination. UU congregations would send delegates to the annual meeting to vote. Embedded into the denomination's bylaws were a set of principles to be upheld by congregations as a covenant. The first principles were voted into being in 1961. They include phrases like men of goodwill and brotherhood of man. In response to the rise of feminism in the 70s and 80s, this section of the bylaws containing our principles, which is called Article 2, was amended in 1985 and 1986. 2 years because it takes 2 votes to do big stuff. We also added, in 1986, the section we know as our 6 sources, which list the sources of our shared faith. So by 1986, we had the list of principles and sources most of us are familiar with today. They're in our hymnal and in many a trifold pamphlet out in the lobby. In many churches, they're framed by the front door. I have them up in my office. Though our 1986 principles look very different from our 1961 principles, the core message is the same. Like the shift from the floppy disk to the hard drive to the cloud, we still have storage. It just looks different. We still have the same values, just spread out across Article 2 in a different format and using some different words. In 1995, Article 2 was amended again. This time we added the 6th source. At first there were only 5. That 6th source that focuses on earth-centered traditions. Now for our UU pagans, this was a crucial amendment that allowed them to see themselves included in our movement. A whole bunch of changes to Article 2 were proposed in 2009, and it was close, but they were rejected by the majority vote. And again in 2013, wording changes were submitted, and this time passed. All of this to say, Article 2 and our principles were written to be changed. It is a living document. And we understand ourselves to be a living tradition. We change and grow, and our movement reacts and responds to the world around us, to the needs of its members, and to the transformation inherent in being human. In the words of feminist activist Gloria Steinem, a movement is only people moving. Now, Article 2 was intended originally to be reviewed in full every 15 years. But as is the case in our congregations too, when things seem to be going well, we sometimes let our adherence to bylaws and policies slip. So we've been tweaking things, but we haven't undergone a full review and rewrite in 37 years. So we've become accustomed to and even attached to these principles and sources over the past 3+ decades, understandably so. But this document was intended to be reviewed in full every 15 years for a reason. Because we are a living tradition, and our bylaws and our covenants are living documents. Because we change, and the world changes, our faith changes. Because we believe that revelation is not sealed. So, here we are. A committee was appointed by the board of our association to begin the process of review and to create an updated draft of Article 2. This committee is made up of ministers, religious educators, and lay people of all ages, identities, and experiences in our movement. The committee solicited a lot of feedback from Unitarian Universalists and published their first draft this past November. Since then, they've held many a feedback session and discussion. They've taken that feedback in and reworked the draft and published this newest draft, which is what we just read together. Unitarian Universalists will vote on this draft this June at our annual meeting called General Assembly. People will propose and already are proposing amendments to the draft between now and then, and those too will be voted on in June. If the vote passes, because it's a big thing, it'll need another vote in 2024 before it replaces what we currently have. So, that's a lot of context. It's a lot. You're doing great. The two biggest changes are as follows. Taking away the list of 6 sources and replacing it with a more general statement about what we are inspired by. There are pros and cons to both. The second is replacing the 7 principles with a set of 7 core values. Turn to the front of your order of service. Love is at the center, with 6 more values oriented around it in no particular order, like the visual you're looking at right now. Each value in this draft is described, as you heard earlier, and followed by a covenant that calls us to live that value out in our lives and in our ministry. Ultimately, in the same way we still have storage and money and music, it just looks like Spotify and Venmo and less like floppy disks, they look very different. The original language of our principles, this language is still all throughout this draft, but it looks different. It feels different. Different can be good, and it can be jarring and challenging. Our world is different than it was in 1986. And the ways in which our communities and the wider world have changed the problems we face now as a society and as a movement have compelled Unitarian Universalists to question whether our principles reflect who we are and who we need to be. Do they equip us ethically, spiritually, for the work to which we are called today? To a Unitarian Universalism of the future? I don't have an answer to that. Mostly, like you probably do, I have questions, a lot of questions, and thoughts, and concerns, and some excitement, too. I find it all a little overwhelming. I'm tempted to say, screw it, let's just stay how we are, because it would most certainly be easier, and we would save so many trifold pamphlets. But I believe in the power and potential of our shared faith. I might not always agree with the method or the wording, but this is my faith, so I'm in. We'll discuss, we'll amend, and we'll vote as we Unitarian Universalists do, and that is a process I can commit to. Ultimately, we believe what we believe. We have no creed. We will change. Language will change. Our institutions will change. And the beauty is, you can disagree. And still, this web of words and values can hold us together. And love can and will guide us on. When they ask us where we stand, let us continue to say, we do not stand, we move. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 354 in your gray hymnal and on the screen. We laugh, we cry. Dale will play through once as you rise in body or in spirit, and then we'll sing together. This is my prayer. Please let the center hold. The center is what holds our faith together. The center is what's strong, is what allows us to stretch farther into the future, to the unknown, the untried, the uncertain, the unnerving, the places where growth happens. Let the center be strong, and let the center of this living tradition move with the times. Let the center of our living tradition lead the times. May the strength of this center strengthen us as we seek, as we embody compassion, work for equity, demand justice for all. Go in love, and blessed be.